Hello, everybody. Let's take a question and ask JP today. The questioner now is Harsha from UK. He's a supply chain and logistics management expert. Harsha.
Hello JP Garu, this is Harsha Kunadraju from United Kingdom, a recent graduate in the field of supply chain and logistics management. As you know JP Garu, our Indian public procurement policy is a beacon for corruption. You know how our electoral representatives use that policy to satisfy the election fund donors and for their specific needs. They're completely using this system in a very negative way, and there are beautiful strategies which are working out by different countries like stakeholder management from Mexico or e-procurement from Korea, visibility and control from Australia and Spain. These are very efficient strategies which are being employed, and right now I don't see any update from our Indian procurement policy. So what is your take on this present issue? Is anything being done on that part? Yeah, that's my question. And also, I would really appreciate if you could give me any references like organizations or people or books who are working towards it.
Thank you, Harsha. Harsha is absolutely right. Public procurement in general in the country is a major source of corruption. As Harsha pointed out, there are beautiful strategies, very efficient and effective strategies across the world. He mentioned Mexico, he mentioned Spain and Australia, he mentioned Korea, the whole idea of new public management. Various countries, including some agencies in India, in respect of some projects and programs, we have improved public procurement systems. But the problem is not so much technology and best practices. If you don't know enough, you can learn from people like Harsha or other experts, and we'll adapt them to our conditions. The real issue is the incentives. Our politics is sustained on phenomenal amounts of illegitimate money. There's inexhaustible appetite for illegitimate expenditure in politics in India. In almost every single constituency in the country, Assembly or Lok Sabha, the candidates are forced to spend multiples of what the legal limit of expenditure is. Oftentimes 10 to 20 to 50 to 100 times. Not 2x or 3x. Almost minimum of 10x everywhere. And in some states like Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, etc., it could be as high as 50 to 100x. Now, where will this money come from? It comes from fundamentally three sources. The transfer posting system in the states. Long ago, a scholar called Robert Wade, an Oxford scholar at the time, he did a pioneering study to understand this cycle of corruption. The second is this public procurement system. Contracts, tenders, everywhere, from small to big. The third is, increasingly it's even more dangerous, perversion of the rule of law system, police cases, crime investigation, interfering in them. And there's enormous amount of money to be made in that. And wherever else money is available. For instance, take sand, land allocation for any project or something else, mining, liquor distribution, and of course taxation areas. So the political incentive is the real challenge. Wherever the governments have realized it's important enough to build a project or to procure in a manner that is politically beneficial or economically beneficial to the state, etc., then things are a little better. I don't think corruption has been eliminated completely, but it's a little better. National highways generally, the national highway projects executed over the years by successive governments are regarded to be relatively corruption-free, relatively. Some projects where the governments are taking it as a very important lifeline politically or economically for the state, again, corruption is reduced or minimized. But in large parts, corruption continues. We have means of doing it if we really mean business. For instance, in our own country, there are some places where e-procurement is taking place. But oftentimes, we also do all kinds of wrong things, even after there is a competitive procurement process. We invite the 2 or 3 top bidders, the best bidders, L1, L2, L3, etc., for negotiation. The moment you have negotiation, After a competitive bidding process, you are distorting the process. So the bidding is only for a formality. You're not really helping anybody. And we all know what typically happens in those situations. Then where it's not e-tendering, but there is a formal paper tendering, there are umpteen number of cases where the papers are switched. They are doctored. Or the assessment of the tender, evaluation of the tender is done in an arbitrary manner. For instance, I know of cases where the timeline, unreasonable timeline is expected. If an honest bidder says, look, I can do it in 2 years, a dishonest bidder claims that he can do it in 6 months, they get a normal weightage and they are favored. But ultimately, they don't stick to those timelines and the penalty is nominal or nothing at all. So there are many kinds of ways of fudging it, even as normatively on paper you show it as a genuine process. But if you increase transparency, if you go in for more e-tendering, if there's greater and greater public awareness of what's happening, and if you innovate with certain tools, for instance, in the US, there's a law called False Claims Act. It dates to the Civil War era, improved significantly in 1988. What does this law do? Any citizen, Harsha or somebody, can file a claim in a federal court if there is a loss sustained by the exchequer in public procurement in terms of pricing, because the government must be the best customer, that is the basic rule. Even apart from the tender conditions, the government must be the most favored customer. Therefore, you cannot charge the government more than what you would charge anybody else. Plus, of course, you must be the best bidder. Suppose there's a loss in terms of money on account of this, or quality, or a social cost because of pollution or something else. The court will then calculate the loss sustained, if that is proved in a court. Up to 5 times the loss can be imposed as a penalty in a very quick civil litigation called quietam litigation. It's a summary litigation. Once you prove it, that is sufficient. The courts can impose the penalty. And the person or organization, private individuals and organizations that go to the court, they get an incentive. About 15 to 30% of the penalty is given to them as an incentive. Therefore, there are hundreds of people and institutions in the United States who are constantly monitoring public procurement and corruption. And the penalties are not small. Per year, $10 to $15 billion of penalties are imposed. And as governments enter into more and more areas, for instance, in the US, the biggest penalties are in the healthcare delivery. Not even in defense contracts. Defense, universally, world over, we know there are all kinds of mischief going on in the world. So unless we move into those areas, not merely depend on government machinery, but also go for innovative tools where efficient private citizens and organizations, public spirit organizations, can actually deliver. But that also means you must set your house in order, the rule of law system. Quick disposal of cases. If the court case takes another 10 years, then the impact is lost. It also requires an efficient and genuine ombudsman system. With great fanfare, we created a Lokpal. But in reality, Lokpal today is, pardon me for saying this, colorless, orderless, tasteless. We innervated it. Nobody knows what's happening. We must have a genuine ombudsman, trusted and respected, and efficient and capable, and adequately provided for in terms of resources, human as well as material. Without all these together, transparency, electronic utilization of technology, legal instruments like False Claims Act, and a powerful ombudsman, and public discourse, it will not work. But if you do it right, even if it doesn't happen all over the country in one sudden fell swoop, we can improve things. Let me give one example. It's not procurement, but at least it's awarding of contracts or awarding of licenses. So 2G spectrum issue became a big issue. I'm sure people remember 2011-12, how much of a big issue it was in the country. Now everybody was demanding people must be jailed, they must be sentenced and all that. We took a stand that if they are jailed and sentenced, it will be good, but it's unlikely to happen. Sadly, we were proved to be right. Not one person was convicted of 2G spectrum corruption. Therefore, what we did was, we put together a team of very eminent Indians with great experience and unmatched integrity and credibility. People who are holding constitutional authorities, who are in the Vigilance Commission, who are known for their anti-corruption fight, judges and others. And we went to the court saying that cancel these licenses because even if corruption is not proved, that they are given arbitrarily without any due process is very clear. Therefore, that is enough. 122 licenses were cancelled. Then we asked the court to mandate mandatory competitive bidding, a transparent competitive bidding process for allocation of the spectrum. And the court ordered that. Since then, I can say with some degree of certainty, there is near zero corruption in spectrum allocation in this country. Even if the whole country doesn't change, all segments of public procurement don't change, or public licensing do not change, you can still improve things step by step, bit by bit. So it's not hopeless, it's painful, and there are best practices all over the world, and there are people like Harsha who are deeply concerned. Let us work together and step by step improve things. And as far as taking the follow-up action, Harsha, certainly we'll take it offline. We'll discuss how best we take this forward.